Welcome to Spill the Brand, where we brew the secrets for marketing your business, building your brand, and growing on social media. Y'all, welcome back to another episode of Spill the Brand. I am so sorry. For week number 2, I am still congested. So we're riding this ride together, but I'm very excited to be here because today is content pillars. And this is one of my favorite topics, truly, because Spill the Brand is all about being a place where we can keep it real, keep it fun. And these are the things that I do with my clients. And now it is time to spill the brand with y'all. Let's dive in. Be honest. Have you ever opened the Instagram, TikTok app, whatever it is, and thought, man, I just have nothing to say today. I have nothing to post, so why even bother? Yeah, no. That's why you need content pillars, because content pillars literally give you no excuse. And I'm going to tell you why. Content pillars are almost like the holy grail of showing up online, and it eliminates the fact of having to come up with ideas, having to come up with things that are aligned with your brand without like literally any guesswork. This is one of my favorite exercises. So the question is, what are content pillars? Content pillars are almost 3 to 5 main things that you talk about often in your business. They're main themes, topics that you talk about regularly. So for me, personally, I have 4 content pillars in particular. I have brand, marketing, social media, and then I include a 4th, which is the 3 Ps, which is purpose, personalization, and positioning. Those I talk about a lot throughout my content and in my marketing because those are essential in building a brand. So you kind of have to define the main things that you talk about within your business. Think about them as like sections in a magazine or chapters in a book, telling more and more of the story in order to explain your service, your offer, or even like what it is that you do. But more so, content pillars really help with ideas because me personally, I took the time to create a Notion page and use a lot of ChatGPT with, okay, if these are my content pillars, what are my subtopics? And that is when we get into step number 2, right? Of create subtopics that align with those topics. So for me, right, if it comes to brand, we have brand aesthetic, brand positioning, overall, what is brand? Those are subtopics that fall under brand itself. Under those subtopics, I make other topics that fall under, and you end up having an infinite amount of list. But what could these look like for you? Let's say you're a personal trainer. This is the most common example, and I'll give a different one. But your content pillars could be workouts, nutrition tips, client wins, and motivation, right? Those could be your main 4. An additional thing, if I were to have a conversation with this personal trainer, would be add something personal about your life, and then explain to people what it is that you do as a personal trainer to make your life easier that you also tell to your clients. Let's say also if you're a business coach. This is a little bit more along the lines of not such a generic example. If you're a business coach, maybe you would have business strategy, marketing tips, client stories, and then productivity. Again, with adding in that the personalization tips, whatever it is, those actually really help and create kind of that personal brand element in a business brand. But those are all things that you can create in your business as pillars. So think about it as the main things that you talk about frequently, and then having the subtopics. So again, if you're a business coach, business strategy might be the topic, and then your subtopic would be what falls under business strategy, and then the things that fall under that particular category. It's almost like creating a tree diagram. So you have these 3 main points, 4 main points, things that fall under those, things that fall under those, right? It's like having like one of those little Russian dolls that like literally never ends. But you don't need to post about everything. Essentially what you do is create a plan that ultimately helps with organizing your content. This in itself, so per se, I'm focusing a single week or a whole month on brand, right? I'm just talking about brand and I want people to get it drilled in their brain. Then each different week, I'm going to have a different theme. I'm going to go into it in a different kind of depth. I'm going to talk about different topics, but there's a lot of different facets in brand, right? So same thing with business strategy and or motivation. There's a lot of different facets that fall under those things. So how can you explain it articulately enough for your audience to understand and break it down? So they're just main topics, ideas that you can really work with them and unpack. That's a lot, sorry. But that in itself is kind of the main aspect of content pillars. But let's talk about why content pillars matter. Here's why content pillars are so important, because this is ultimately going to save you time from writing every single post. This is going to be saving you from talking about 27 different things all the time, confusing your audience, and not feeling like you have to post randomly and wondering why it's not landing with your audience. These main things are often the main struggles I have when it comes to business owners and clients that come to me is just, I don't even know what to post today. Why don't I know what to post today? Well, let's reference back your content pillars. What do you want to talk about today? Do you have an idea? Because more often than not, you've either been asked this question by your audience, and you just kind of need to be reminded of the frequently asked questions, the topics that need to be covered, and so on. So it doesn't really change much, but it just gives you almost brain freedom. I've had one of my clients who has talked to me about how she literally went from not really understanding content creation and content planning to then after a couple of months of really understanding her pillars to being really successful at it. Because as the more that she got into it, the more that she had ideas, the more the creative side of her flowed much easier. And so this is why having your content pillars just kind of stems the root of creativity. When you think about this really helps build trust, authority, and overall brand loyalty because people consistently know what it is that you're talking about. So I'll get into content planning at a later episode, but for now, just focus on your content pillars. Make sure that you're writing out 3 to 5 main ideas, topics, buckets, whatever you want to call them, of the things that you're talking about frequently and the things that fall under them. So in this next step, it's how to choose your content pillars. I have some notes over here, so that's why I'm kind of glancing because I want to make sure y'all get the absolute best information. This, every single week, y'all, I've been giving you homework, and now this is the time to go back and reflect because you need to go back and look at your avatar and your unique value proposition. So your offer statement, what makes you stand out? For me, like I mentioned to y'all, I asked the question of what makes you the obvious choice. So if I were to ask you that question, what are you able to tell me? What problems are they dealing with? What are they craving help with? Start with what they need from you, right? So this is answering the question of what really can be my content pillar. Those are like really 3 questions that you should ask yourself of what problems are they dealing with? What are they craving help with? Start with what they need from you, right? This is problem solving. This is addressing the main issues that your audience does have. So this is kind of that first step of really understanding how to choose a content pillar. Next thing I would say is think about your core brand values. I mentioned this in the last episode. If you haven't done values work, I would highly suggest using something called a value identifier. There's a really good one. I can put the resource, let me know if you guys want it. It's called a values identifier. It's about $60, but I do recommend doing it just because you can really pull out the things that are valuable to you and your brand. Because more often than not, what is valuable to you comes out in your business. So keep that in mind. What do you stand for? What are you always preaching? That's content in itself, and so that's where values work really becomes essential. The last thing is don't forget about your personal brand. Your personal brand is what brings people in, and it's what makes people trust you. You don't just want to educate them, you do want to connect, and mixing in behind the scenes, opinions, stories, all of that is something that builds trust with your audience. So I would totally suggest that in the sense of going back to your avatar, your value proposition, thinking about your core brand values, and mixing in this strategy with your personal side of things really is going to change the game on how you're going to differentiate and choose your content pillars. Let me tell you a little bit more. I explained what my personal As Sam the Branding Coach is, but also for Spill the Brand, they're very much so the same. We have content pillars for this show are branding tips, which come with strategy, identity, and foundation of brand. We have social media strategy, which is growth, engagement, and all of the platforms that you can branch out to. And we have client wins, examples, that's proof and case studies that I'm going to show y'all in a little bit of time. Marketing and messaging with how you can launch, content create, and generate sales. And then also my personal life. Like I told y'all, I'm still congested. I was congested in the last episode, but I want to share little things like you guys have noticed. The behind me has changed. I'm in the middle of moving and you guys know this. Like it's a whole process to be personal with your audience, let them in on more than just the things that you're trying to sell them, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Okay, y'all, so what would the end of this episode be without assigning y'all some homework? One thing I want y'all to think about is that y'all need to define your content pillars. So obviously that's a part of this homework, but then under each one of your content pillars that you create, between the 3 to 5 main topics, ideas, buckets, whatever you want to call them, I want you to make sure that you also create a post idea under each one. Because like I mentioned, you have the topic and then you have the subtopic. Under each one of those, you should have plenty ideas. If you need help, let me know. I'm literally always here for you. Message me in my DMs. Let me know you watched the show. Let me know this is what episode you're on. Because this part, it can be a little bit tricky because sometimes you need a little bit of a one-on-one conversation to identify those content pillars. So if you need help, I got your back. But for the homework, 3 to 5 content pillars, main ideas, topics. Want you to define those. And then under each one, I want you to make sure that you define a post that you can create with a caption. And then go from there. Your content pillars is more than just staying consistent, but it is about building trust. How you're going to create content and start building a brand on social media is the very next step in this process. But it's a whole process building a brand, right? So thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Spill the Brand. You know that I'm always here to spill the tea with you, but y'all, you have some great homework this week, so stay tuned for next time. Thanks for tuning in to Spill the Brand. Keep brewing your creativity and strategy until our next coffee date. See you then.